Hello students, welcome back to the biology class. So in the last class we continued the 15th chapter, biodiversity and conservation, and we discussed the topic of species area relationship. We learned in the last class that Alexander von Humboldt, the German naturalist and geographer, he made extensive studies and field experiments in South American jungles, and he came up with the gross generalization that when we increase the area of study or survey, there is always increase in the richness of species discovered, but to a certain limit. And we learned in the last class that the equation comes out to be log S is equal to log C plus Z log A, where the S is the species richness, A is the area covered, Z is the slope of the line or regression coefficient, and C is the y-intercept. We learned in the last class that this relationship of the species richness and area for a wide variety of taxa turns out to be a rectangular hyperbola. The slope of this regression, that means the value of the z-line or the slope of this regression coefficient of species area relationship, indicates that species richness decrease with decrease in the area, and the value of z is 0.1 to 0.2 in maximum cases, regardless of the taxonomic group, regardless of the region we cover. But yes, when we cover a very large area like a complete continent, then this value can go up to 0.6 to 1.2. We learned the examples of the frugivorous birds and mammals in the tropical forest. For different continent, the value of z is 1.15, and for the plants in the Britain and birds in the California, mollusks in the New York, the z value is 0.1 to 0.2. We learned the importance of biodiversity in the last class, that the biodiversity is important for stability, is important for the productivity as well as for the ecosystem health. We learned the definition of stable community in the last class, that it's a community which does not show much variation in the productivity year after year, and it is this community in which is either resistant to or resilient to the occasional disturbances which are caused either by man-made or they could have natural causes. And then a stable community is the one which is resistant to the invasion by the alien species. We even discussed about the David Tillman's long-term ecosystem experiments using the outdoor plots, and then we learned that according to him, two main observations he made were that first is the plot with the more species show less year-to-year variation in the total biomass, and the second observation he made was that increased biodiversity contributes to the higher productivity. So the productivity of the ecosystem would be higher if the ecosystem has more biodiversity compared to those which have low biodiversity. And we learned the example that the tropical area with more biodiversity is more productive compared to the temperate areas where the diversity is less. We also learned that through the various checks, through various controls, negative feedback and the positive feedback, as well as the critical links and the keystone species, we learned that the ecosystem health is controlled by various things. We also learned about the Stanford ecologist Paul Ehrlich. He proposed the rivet popper hypothesis, and he compared in this hypothesis he made an analogy between a flying plane and the ecosystem. He stated that the various species in the ecosystem are parallel to the rivets which are in the aeroplane. So the stability and the functioning or the accident if happens to the plane is all controlled by which rivet we are removing from the aeroplane. So he made this analogy which is called as the rivet popper hypothesis given by Paul Ehrlich. And we learned the key species definition in the last class, that it is the species which drives the major ecosystem functions. Now in today's class we are going to start with the topic of the loss of biodiversity. We all know that IUCN has introduced the Red List in 2004, which documents the extinction of more than 2,000 species of the native birds from the tropical Pacific islands after human colonized those areas. This list of the document extinction of the species of 378 species in the last 500 years include 338 vertebrates, 359 invertebrates, and 87 plants. The examples of the recent extinction are, now remember these all documents are from the NCERT itself. So and they are important from the point of board examination. The examples of the recent extinction include dodo, the bird from Mauritius, quagga, the herbivorous mammal which looked like zebra from Africa. Then thylacine is a carnivorous marsupial from Tasmanian tiger, or which is also called as Tasmanian wolf from Australia. Steeler sea cow from Russia. And there are 3 subspecies which are extinct of tiger. These are Bali, Javan and Caspian. We need to remember that there are 6 still existing subspecies of tiger. So 3 subspecies of tiger are gone and 6 are still living, and those are Bengal tiger, Siberian tiger, Malayan tiger, Sumatran tiger, South China tiger and the Indochina tiger. Last 20 years has documented the extinction of 27 species altogether. Amphibians are the most vulnerable to the extinction concept because they don't have any exoskeleton. So we all know that reptiles have exoskeleton, birds have exoskeleton, mammals have exoskeleton, fishes also. But amphibians are without such exoskeleton, so they are more prone to the changes which are coming to the climate. 15,500 species are facing extinction, out of which 12% are the birds, 23% are mammals, 32% are amphibians, and the 31% of them are the gymnosperms.